and welcome to another episode of The Recruitment Doctor with me, Dan Hoff-Rodriguez. Today I wanted to do a follow-up video on the one I did last week for those employers and clients based on why it's important to have an employer brand, by talking to you about the honest truth about why employees actually leave an organisation. I think obviously, I'm sure a lot of you out there will be doing your own exit interviews when someone hands in their notice. But the truth of the matter is, most of the time, they're probably not going to tell you the whole truth. And being a recruitment business, when we speak to candidates, candidly, we do have very frank and honest conversations in order to identify what their desires are in the next move, to ensure that when we are finding them a new job, we ensure that they're going to stay and they don't leave. But let's crack on as I talk to you about some of our top reasons an employee is looking to leave an organisation. So in no specific order, by the way, I'm going to start up there with the job was not sold as it was advertised. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. And this is why I wanted to address the elephant in the room straight away on this. But candidates will talk about the fact that this could be related to the technology, for example. So they might be told that they're working on one thing and then suddenly they're working on another, or they've been told that they're going to be actually project managing something whilst doing requirements gathering, and actually they're doing none of that and not speaking to a customer at all. So this can be quite wide in terms of the reasons. But all I would say is that when you are advertising or interviewing for a job, that you're being as truthful as possible, because there's nothing than losing someone so quickly because it wasn't advertised as when they first applied for that specific job. And that takes me on to my next reason, which is actually about the challenging nature of a job. So we get a lot of candidates saying the job's just not challenging enough, and that is quite frustrating for us, because we actually, what does that actually mean? And some of the reasons that come out of that when we do speak to them and dig a little bit deeper is that actually they're not working on high levels of technical code. For example, if they're a developer, they're not actually working on brand new developments and working on new projects. They're actually working on enhancements and maintenance and bug fixes. So this can be, again, quite sporadic. But to make a job challenging is all about them working with you, I suppose, at the start to understand what that personal development plan looks like, to understand what is going to challenge them. So maybe go back to them at the start when you hire someone on that onboarding process and say, what is a challenge for you? Would you like to work on leading projects, maybe having customer ownership, whatever that looks like? Is job specific, of course, but really maybe it's about identifying what's their own challenge to them right at the start of that onboarding process. Thirdly, lack of investment and training. A lot of people leave because maybe the business isn't helping them with gaining certifications or giving them training on and having their own personal development. A lot of people say that a good mental health and good well-being comes from consistent learning and development. So look at that own thing. That's a great perk to have in your own organisation. Suddenly I've just glown up like heavens as the sun's come straight into my office there, so apologies. Secondly, onto my next point, I want to talk to you about job uncertainty. Now, look, sometimes when we don't know a business is going through some financial struggles, there can be rumours, and it's important to address those rumours, or just be honest if you can, depending on how honest you can be. Obviously, you don't want to freak people out, I get it, but you've got to be careful to manage that carefully. So if there is any uncertainty, you want to address it before suddenly, it is okay, there is a plan, but then suddenly everyone's left because they've got panicked. So be quick to address that. Next, I want to talk to you about limited career opportunities and career paths. Now, again, if you're a small organisation and the growth plans aren't as aggressive, then again, maybe they know this, but we've had reasons where they've reached the top, they can't go any higher because their manager's there, and after that they've got a CTO or a CMO. So again, it's something that maybe isn't in your control, and maybe they've reached their own path within that organisation. That means that they've developed so far that they have to leave, but maybe there's opportunities to bring in new arms within that hierarchy to offer those opportunities within the business. I suppose the other point on that is lack of recognition and reward. We get a lot of people saying, sometimes it's just nice to have a thank you. A thank you goes a long way sometimes. And when people are grafting, maybe we've got a tight deadline on a project, and people have been working long hours, buying in, a few pizzas or dinner goes a long way. So it's the little things. One of the top things that, or reasons a candidate seeks to leave an organisation is because of poor management. And that's not just in terms of, people not being able to manage. It encompasses different styles. So, poor management, poor communication, delegation of tasks. If timelines are running short, the manager isn't actually communicating that and is just shouting at their staff. But that can also encompass things like micromanagement. So I think we need to hone in on that, and it's up to that senior leadership team to ensure that they're driving and empowering their managers as much as that they can. And that takes me on to senior leadership teams. So sometimes when you're in that SLT, that senior leadership team, sometimes you don't communicate things properly, so they're not coming down the chain well enough. So how are you communicating with everyone in the organization, regardless of their role, regardless of who they are? It's important that you are there, your FaceTime's there all the time. So try and keep that chain of communication consistent, clear, concise all the time, regardless of where you are in that organization. I'm going to touch quickly on company reputation. Now, obviously, I work in the tech industry. The tech industry meets regularly, meetups and talk and word of mouth can get around very quickly. So if a matter hasn't been dealt with internally properly, just beware that can get out, and you've got to address it. So be careful to look after your company reputation, and if there's things that don't need to get out, make sure that they're not being told to the wrong people. And I think that takes me nicely onto toxic work cultures. I think toxic work cultures are just one of the worst things. I've been in there. If it's not dealt with early on, it spirals, and once it spirals, there's no going back. So once you've got one bad egg in there, you've got to address it, and one bad egg can affect a lot of people in that team. So look at really nipping that in the bud quickly. A big reason also we get lack of investment in their product and in the tech stack and in technology and innovation as a whole. Obviously, I could talk about this all day long, so I'm not going to drag this video on any longer than it needs to be. But be careful when it comes to making enhancements, keeping up with competitors, and making sure that your product continually evolves and is continually being innovative by good technology. And now I'm going to address the old salary situation. Big reasons people leave: they're underpaid and they're undervalued within that salary. Do your own homework, because if you've got a team of devs who are heavily sought after, you do not want to be under market. I'm not saying you don't want to pay over market, but similarly, just jump on a few job boards, speak to someone like me, but make sure that you are paying your team, your employees, at least the market, to ensure that they're at least happy. And that also includes your compensation package. You got a lot of small organisations that are only able to have the sort of bare minimum initially. I'm not saying you need to go and cough up on all the other trimmings like non-contributory pensions, for example, life insurance. But if you can do the little things like your eye tests and your dental and maybe things like life insurance and healthcare, then they're great. But I'll tell you what's even better. Go to your employee base now, do a survey, find out what they want. What would they want in their compensation package? And my last 3 points are all around the pandemic. Let me touch on remote working. So, remote working. If you are offering remote working, offer remote working. I think you need to be clear. We've had a few instances with remote working where employers have said that they offer it, and then an employee gets in there and says it's up to the discretion of their manager, and actually there's none. Or they've been told that there's sort of 3 to 4 days and actually there's 1. And in some other instances, we've had employers just not offering it at all and just saying it's something that's going to come in later. So just be honest. We've gone through a pandemic. People have been working from home more than ever. So try and just be honest and open and be clear, because you can't bend the truth. That will come out eventually. That takes me on to flexible working, which is completely different to remote working. Does my nut in when people say it's the same. Flexible working is just about flexibility within the week. So some people have got core hours, so 10 to 4. They can come in at any time before that, as long as they're there between 10 to 4. But maybe you could be even more flexible if you've got people that are mums and dads that need to go pick up their kids, and you're just able to offer that flexibility. Maybe they could just pick up those hours at home. Those little things just go a long way. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk to you about location and travel time. Now, look, some people say this is the job of the recruiter, which I would say it probably is, but it's no harm in addressing it, because people will say they'll do it, because they need a job, they need to work. But sometimes it's just not foreseeable. It's not plausible, because they have to travel via public transport, which is not reliable in the best of times. So address their interview, maybe help them. I know that we will sit down with them on Google Maps or on the train line and map it all out just to make sure that it is doable. But at the end of the day, if someone does a 4-hour round trip daily for, say, 2 months, it's going to get too much at some point. So it's worth addressing. Thank you so much. I'm sure I've missed a few other reasons, so feel free to comment below. Hit the subscribe button, hit a like, and we're out of here, and we look forward to speaking to you again. Take care.